What's up, everybody? I hope everyone is doing amazing. Well, we are finally here, part 2 of our Amazon Advertising Basics channel. So I really wanted to start with all of the specific ad types and really dive deep into them so that way anyone who's not too familiar with Amazon ads can hop in and go through every single ad type. Now, the problem with that is the ad types have gotten so complex that we need to break them out into even smaller pieces of content to make them a little bit more digestible. So for our Amazon Advertising Basics Part 2, we are starting with auto campaigns. So I'm going to take you through, clicking on the sponsored product campaign type, walk you through my philosophy with auto campaigns, kind of the basics of how they got started, and then walk through the different structures for them and what to expect, as well as how to optimize them. So let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments. If you have anything that you weren't too sure about or I didn't explain too well, let me know. All right, let's get started. So Amazon Advertising Basics. Sponsored products. So the first thing you are going to want to do when you go to create an auto campaign is choose sponsored products. It is the only campaign type that actually has auto campaigns as of yet. So first thing you're going to want to do, click open your campaign manager, create campaign, sponsored products, and continue. Once we get into our sponsored product campaign creation, this is the screen that you're going to be shown. You're going to have the opportunity to put your campaign name in. You're going to have the opportunity to click what portfolio you want to put your campaign in, as well as select your daily budget and then your targeting type, which is really where we're going to start diving into our philosophy here. But in general, quick tips for campaign name. We almost always start with the product we're advertising, and then we put our campaign type. So SP auto campaign, SP manual campaign, and then the type of keywords or the type of targeting we are putting. So we'll dive into that later, but that's typically our campaign name structure. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, portfolios are basically just an organization technique. So let's say you're advertising a soccer ball, a baseball, and a football. You have 3 products. If you want to organize those in a way where only seeing the campaigns per product type, you can create one portfolio for all your soccer ball campaigns, one portfolio for all your football campaigns, and one for all of your baseball campaigns. So that's what portfolios are for. In this instance, we're not utilizing any. And then start date, end date. Start date whenever you want. End dates we typically do not put on campaigns. The main reason being is Amazon loves data. So if you end campaigns and then start them again, it's not fantastic because Amazon weights all of this data you collect and makes optimizations based off it. So don't typically recommend putting an end date. And good news, if your product goes out of stock, your sponsored product campaigns will stop running. So they're not going to continue to run even though you don't have stock. So kind of the main reasons why we don't use end dates. Daily budgets. This could probably be a video in itself, but in general, we typically start with something like $20 a day. That's going to be really dependent on what your budget goals are though. But in the beginning, keep it low so that way you can collect data, test and optimize, and then increase your daily budget as your optimizations take place and you start performing extremely well. So start small, optimize, and scale. Now, the next option you're gonna have is your targeting type. So you have the ability to choose an auto campaign or a manual campaign. Now we're gonna dive into a little bit of philosophy on the next slide, but in general, auto campaigns are where you're allowing Amazon to collect the data for you and optimize as they go. So with auto campaigns, it's typically recommended by a lot of new users to run auto campaigns until you get familiar with keyword targeting, product targeting, and different match types, which will be a whole nother video. But let's say you're ready to run an auto campaign. Let's talk about sponsored product auto campaign philosophy first. Auto campaigns are amazing. We run them all products for pretty much all of our brands. But the first question you need to ask, does Amazon know my product? That's the most important question when running an auto campaign, because what's going to happen if Amazon does not know your product, you don't have, amazing backend keywords, you don't have a strong keyword SEO optimized listing, Amazon's not going to know your product. So what's going to happen when you start this auto campaign? They're going to cast a wide net. So if I'm targeting soccer balls, they're probably going to target the sports category, and they're going to continue to show all of these ads in these random placements until Amazon figures out what it is. And how does Amazon figure out what your product is? By your clicks and your conversions. So if Amazon does not know your product, you could spend a lot of money and not drive a lot of sales, because that's what an auto campaign is. You're letting Amazon automatically choose your placements for you. So if they don't know, they're going to try to find out. So that's why I always say, if Amazon doesn't know your product, you haven't invested in your back end, you haven't invested in your listing, I wouldn't recommend an auto campaign. I would recommend starting with a manual campaign where you can choose your keywords and know exactly where your product's showing. Let's go back to the soccer ball example. In an auto campaign, let's say my listing's fully optimized. Let's say I have some data from, orders I've gotten in the past. I can probably bet that Amazon knows my product. Now, if it's a brand new launch, don't have any data, your auto campaign's not going to perform as well, because it's going to take time to Amazon collect that data. Again, how are they going to do that? Cast a wide net, show your ad in all kinds of different placements, and figure out what's driving the most clicks and conversions. Now, I have a really quick tip for figuring out if Amazon knows your product. What we always recommend doing is, let's say it's your first time running an auto campaign. When you go to create a campaign, check manual targeting, upload your product, and then see what the suggested keywords are. If your suggested keywords are highly relevant to your listing, you can assume Amazon knows your product. Now, I'm using this example for a reason. We pulled a product with 19,000 reviews, so we can assume they have a ton of data. They've been running for a while, so it's obvious Amazon knows their product. They even know the product to the point of knowing the exact weights that people are converting on. So weight 10 pounds, dumbbells 10, 20-pound double, neoprene dumbbell. All of those are pretty relevant keywords. So I would say Amazon knows this product. I would trust Amazon with an auto campaign. Now, let's take this other dumbbell I found. It has a decent listing, it seems to have dumbbell in there, but they will also throw in workout bench, gym equipment. There's also no reviews, so I'm assuming it's a new launch, right? Let's see if Amazon knows that product. I put it into my manual campaign, keyword targeting. Let's see the suggestions. Now, the first suggestion is weight bench, and then you have dumbbell sets, and then you have home gym, workout bench, weight set. Those aren't near as relevant as the keyword suggestions we had for the product with data. So if I'm running an auto campaign here, I can make the assumption Amazon's going to show my ads under weight bench. And if consumers are looking for weight bench, yes, they may be interested in my product, but they're probably not as interested as the consumer that's typing in weights for 10 pounds. So that's just a quick test we run to see how relevant our products are and how well Amazon knows our products. So for this brand new product launch, I don't know if I would run an auto campaign immediately, because Amazon doesn't seem to know my product too well. There's a lot of random keywords in here. Home weight, 50-pound weight, or 5-pound weight set of 2. My auto campaign is probably going to take some time to optimize, and I can assume that it's not going to do amazing from the beginning of the launch. So, all right, now that that's answered, does Amazon know your product? If yes, let's go back to running our auto campaigns. So back to our campaign creation slide, the first thing we're going to click, auto campaigns. Now, the next thing Amazon's going to ask us is our campaign bidding strategy. So there's typically 3 options here. Dynamic bids down only, dynamic bids up and down, that's the standard, and then fixed bids. You can then adjust bids by placement, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So if we're starting a campaign, if you're wanting to be extremely aggressive, dynamic bids up and down. If you're not sure on bid optimization, we recommend running dynamic bids down only, because that means it's going to adjust your bid lower. It's going to focus on optimization, where else up and down is going to increase your bid when Amazon thinks you're going to convert. And Amazon wants you to spend more, and Amazon wants to drive more sales. So this is more for scalability. This is more for profitability. Now, if you're familiar with bid management and you have a bid management solution in place, fixed bids is typically the way to go, because then you can optimize your bids based off your own data. Now, Amazon's also going to ask you if you want to adjust your bids by placement. It's a little arrow button that you can click. We don't typically recommend doing this on a launch. Now, you can get crazy aggressive, and if you want your ad showing at the very top of the search for your sponsored products at all times, you can, make this adjustment where 500% increase by top of search, but that's going to be extremely, extremely aggressive, and you're probably going to hemorrhage money. And a good news with this, Amazon gives you this data after your campaign runs. So we always recommend keeping this at 0. And then once you see the data, maybe you're performing really well for top of search, then you can increase. But we typically don't recommend increasing on a launch because you don't have the data to make that decision. So now that we have our bidding strategy, Amazon's going to ask you to select an ad group. Now, we always run one campaign for one ad group because all your budgeting decisions are on the campaign level. That will be discussed in another video, but for now, create one ad group. Ad group name, we typically just put our product name, so I'd put soccer balls if we're advertising our soccer balls. And then we're gonna select the products we wanna put in this campaign. So if you wanna have the cleanest campaign structure, we recommend only putting your soccer balls within your soccer ball ad group and within that campaign. A lot of people recommend just throwing all your products in there with a low bid, but as you guys saw in this scenario, Amazon needs to know what your product is. And if you have a soccer ball, a football, a baseball, all in a campaign, Amazon's gonna get confused. It may show your football to the soccer ball keywords, things like that. So it's not a lot of alignment. So we always recommend creating your really close product targeting and putting them all in one campaign. Now, let's say I sell t-shirts, one's red and one's blue. Not a huge search volume differentiation there, so I may put all of my t-shirts in the same campaign. Now, if I had a long sleeve t-shirt and a tank top, I probably wouldn't combine those because they're not very similar. So similar products you can put in one campaign. All right, we have our ad group name, we have our products added. The next thing Amazon's gonna ask you is to create your sponsored product targeting groups. Now, the default is set default bid, which is gonna look like this, 75 cents for every single match type. And then it's probably gonna have, whatever bid you want. So you can do $1, all of these would be $1. Now, this gets really unique because these 4 match types are actually pretty different. So if you do set default bid, you're gonna be running with all 4 of these on at the same time. Not necessarily a problem, it's actually how all of the original campaigns used to be ran. This is a newer targeting. So what we like to recommend is to actually take a close look at the match types they're giving you. So it's 4 different targeting groups. And what do those targeting groups mean? We can see here. So substitutes and complements are basically where your ad is going to show up on the product detail page of a competitor. So if you're looking at a competitor's listings, you're going to see sponsored products related to this item. Under there, that is where your ad is going to show if substitutes and complements are turned on. So if you have these 2 turned on, that's where your ad's going to show. Now, the other 2 targeting types, loose match and close match, are for search terms. So they're going to show your ad to shoppers who use search terms loosely related to your products. So basically, they're going to show up in the search results. If someone types soccer ball, your ad's going to show up in the search. Now, if someone types soccer ball, clicks on a competitor listing, your ad's going to show up directly below hand if substitutes and complement match is turned on. So basically, Amazon rolled out these 4 new targeting types to make our ability to target within auto campaigns even more controllable. So this is what it used to look like. You used to have all 4 turned on at all times. And what would happen is Amazon would typically optimize to whatever is performing best, which can be a good thing for sure. But that means we don't have a lot of control over our budget for close match, loose match, and complements. So in this example here, we can see our close match is doing well and our loose match is doing pretty well. But if I were to increase the budget of the campaign, Amazon's going to distribute that budget for me because all budgeting is on the campaign level. So I can't really control the targeting types here. Amazon's going to control that for me. They're going to give more budget to substitutes than they are close match and loose match because substitutes is driving them the most sales. So why this is an issue, and maybe not an issue, it's just we love having more control over where ads are showing. So since we now have 4 different targeting types, there's 3 different strategies we typically see being ran with auto campaigns. First thing is to just turn on an auto campaign and let all 4 targeting types run, as you can see here. Still performs really well, Amazon's optimizing, but I can't necessarily scale any one targeting types that's doing best without turning off the others. So that's one strategy. It's best for ease of management. Number 2 strategy is to create 2 auto campaigns per product. 1 campaign for our close match and our loose match, 1 campaign for complements and substitutes. So what that means is we're going in and we're gonna turn off 2 of the targeting types, allow 1 auto campaign to focus on ASIN keyword research, 1 auto campaign to focus on search term keyword research. So we'll have 1 campaign for close match and loose match, 1 campaign for substitutes and complements. Now this allows us to scale. Maybe we perform much better on the product detail page. So once our complements and our substitutes are doing really well, we can increase the budget. Maybe we perform even better in the search results and we want to collect more search term data. We only want close match and loose match turned on, so we can increase our budget for those to collect more search term data. Now, the third strategy that we can utilize is running 1 auto campaign per targeting type, which means 4 auto campaigns per product. So from a scalability perspective, this is going to be a lot to manage. But if your only goal is major profitability, then create 1 auto campaign per targeting type. So that way you can create a lot of control for that and then increase your budget as the targeting types start performing better. So this is kind of the next big decision you need to make. Once you know your structure, once you select your auto or your targeting types, we're gonna create our starting bids for those targeting types. So let's say we're gonna go ahead and run all 4 targeting groups within a campaign. Starting bids is the next question, and this is a huge question I get extremely often. So let's dive into what it looks like creating starting bids for your targeting types. All right, so I typically just look at what the Amazon suggested bid is. That's gonna tell me how competitive a space is. And then we're gonna look at that suggested bid relative to your product price. Let's say I'm selling a soccer ball. Let's say that soccer ball is $20. So we typically assume that we need at least 10 clicks before we make a bid adjustment. So if my product's $20 and I get 10 clicks, if I set a $2 bid, that means 10 clicks is already gonna cause me to, be in the red and take a loss. 10 clicks times $2 is $20 and my product is $20. So I always kind of look at that holistically. If I have a high ticket product, I can probably bid a little bit more aggressively. If I have a cheap product, I probably need to set lower bids. So I go in, I set my bids, let my campaign run, launch it. I get 0 impressions in the first 3 days. If I am getting no impressions, that means I need to increase my bid because someone else is bidding more than me, so I am winning 0 ad inventory. So the first thing I'm gonna do is increase my bid. Now, let's say I launch, I'm getting a lot of impressions, a lot of clicks, but performance is terrible, high ACOS, conversion rate's terrible. What do? I decrease my bid. That is kind of the number 1 thing you could do to create profitable campaigns is bid optimization. So those are pretty much the 2 things you need to know. So a lot of people overthink your starting bids. In reality, you can launch your campaign, see data within 48 hours and know whether or not you need to increase or decrease your bid. So that's typically what we look at there. Now, you do need to be aware of attribution windows and things like that. Sometimes 48 hours is not enough data because, as you guys know, once you start a campaign in Amazon, it typically takes around 2 to 3 days for all of that data to actualize. So just keep a close eye on your campaigns and make adjustments loosely based around these rules. All right, set my starting bids for all of my targeting groups. I know exactly what targeting groups I'm running. Next thing you're gonna be asked is whether or not you want to add product negatives or keyword negatives. So typically, we don't add any from the beginning. We like to make database decisions, so I usually just skip through this and I launch my campaign. So you successfully have launched your first sponsored product auto campaign. What do you look for next? Optimizations. So this is a screenshot from one of our accounts. We have all of these auto campaigns running. We need to start optimizing our auto campaigns because they're running at 35% ACOS. So what I typically do is I open up all of the campaigns. The first screen you're gonna be shown is the campaign level screen. So it's gonna look like this. You're gonna be on ad groups. One of the things you wanna look at is your placement data. So click on your placements. This is where I mentioned the very beginning of the video. You're gonna see the data on your top of search conversion versus your product detail page conversion. In this screenshot here, you can see we convert much better when we're top of search. So I would probably apply a slight bid increase rule for top of search because I have the data to justify it. You know, I convert much better on top of search. So I'd probably just put like a 10% increase. And then I'm gonna go back to ad groups and click on ad groups. And then it's gonna allow me to select my one ad group I'm running. And then I'm gonna get that screen. So as you can see here, we're focusing on close match and loose match. So we're collecting search term data here. And you can somewhat see the performance of this data. Now, the number one thing you're gonna wanna do is focus on your bid optimization. So you can see we have a CPC of $2.21. So our cost per click is actually lower than our bid. And we're running at 30% ACOS. So if I want to lower this ACOS, I'm gonna need to lower my CPC less than $2.21 because that's what I'm paying per click. Doesn't matter what your bid is. This is the number that actually shows you what you're paying for every single click. So at a $2.21 cost per click, I cannot justify this conversion at a 30% ACOS. If I wanted to get it to, you know, a 25% ACOS, I need to lower this bid. So I would probably come in and set a $2 bid, or maybe $1.97 to lower my ACOS. So that's the number one most important thing you can do is run bid optimization. Now, the second thing that you could do is run any type of negatives. So I'm not a huge fan of negating a ton of keywords because that's what your bid optimization is for. But with an auto campaign, you cannot optimize bids on the search term level. So the next step I would recommend doing is clicking on your search terms right here and filtering top down by spend to see what you're spending the most on. And if you are hemorrhaging money on any search term that is not converting, you can consider adding it as a negative. A good example of when I would run this is, let's say I'm selling iPhone charging cables and I'm getting a lot of clicks for Android charging cables. I would probably negate Android charging cables just because it's 0% relevant. Now, if it was driving sales at a decent profitability, I would continue to let it run. That's the biggest misconception I think in the Amazon ad space right now. Just negate everything. Nah, in reality, if it's driving sales, there's some type of relevancy. For example, let's go back to my soccer ball scenario. If I open up my search terms and I see I have a lot of clicks for soccer cleats, but it's running at a 50% ACOS, I would not negate it. It's driving sales, you know. What you really want to do is use all this data collection from your auto campaigns and invest into it in a manual campaign, which we'll dive in later. But all in all, negatives probably can be a whole video on its own. Don't use them too aggressively. It's going to cut down your opportunity for sales. Just use negatives when keywords are not relevant whatsoever. So all in all, it's the biggest thing you're going to want to look at: sponsor product optimization, your placements, your bid management, and then lightly negating anything not relevant. And yeah, so last big thing, sponsor product budgets. I get that question a lot. How do we adjust budgets? Biggest thing, is your campaign profitable? Yes. Increase budget. Is it not profitable? Optimize bids and decrease budget if need be. Now, it takes budget to collect data. So if you set a $1 budget, you're not going to collect a lot of data. But these are the biggest things we look at, and that's all I have. So let me know if you guys have any follow-up questions about sponsor product auto campaigns, and if I missed anything, let me know and I'll create a follow-up video or answer you guys directly. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Thank you guys.